On behalf of Mayor Catherine Pugh, thank you so much for coming out to the 9th of 9 meet and greets with Acting Police Commissioner Michael Harrison. My name is Shantae Guy, and I will be your facilitator for tonight. As a Mervo alumna, class of 1992, and a parent of a Mervo student, I'm so happy to be here with you all tonight. Tonight's an opportunity for us all to get to know our new acting police commissioner better, and for him to hear your hopes, your concerns, as it relates to policing our community. For those of you who have signed up to speak tonight, listen for your names. I will call 5 names at a time so that folks can come up here to the microphone and be ready to share their thoughts with us and with the acting police commissioner. When you come up to the microphone, please remind us of your name. Tell us the neighborhood you live in, whether it's Coldstream Montebello, Bel Air Edison, or Gardenville, or somewhere else. We want to hear where you come from. Each person will have 2 minutes to speak. When your 2 minutes are up, you will hear a timer sound. So I just want to check in on the timer because there was some confusion about it last night. The timer is on my cell phone, so it will sound like a cell phone ringing, but it is the 2-minute warning for you to wrap up your question or your comment. I'm sure that everyone agrees that the police commissioner should hear from as many voices as possible. As such, I'll be working really hard to make sure that voices that haven't been heard in our previous forums have the opportunity to share their hopes and their concerns with the police commissioner tonight. It is my full intention to make sure that everyone who signed up to speak is called to the microphone. If you have a question but would prefer not to ask it at the microphone, feel free to write your question down, raise your hand, and a City Hall staff member whose hands are up now will collect those questions and bring them to the front. Please join me in thanking Principal Langston for welcoming us to her building today. In addition to the police commissioner, we're joined tonight by Major Preston, Captain Murphy, and Neighborhood Coordination Sergeant Hardy, and Officers Banks and Cooper of the Northeastern District. I'd also like to take a minute to acknowledge Public Safety Committee Chair, Councilman Brandon Scott, and Councilwoman Mary Pat Clark. So with the administrative things out of the way, please join me in welcoming Mayor Catherine Pugh to the podium. Oops, I'm sorry. Jack is always hiding in the back. Please join me in acknowledging City Council President Jack Young. Thank you, Jack. Again, please join me in welcoming Mayor Catherine Pugh to the podium.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your schedules to be with us this evening. But I want to say a special thank you to our acting commissioner, Michael Harrison, and his wife, Cece. Cece, stand up for a second. And they join us this evening on their 27th wedding anniversary. Of course, they didn't tell me that ahead of time. I might have tried to do something a little different. But I'm very excited. And let me just share a few things with you all. You know, the 5-panel police chiefs from around the nation who helped to advise me said these things to me. To the extent that you can find someone who can bring about cultural change in your department, look in that direction. To the extent that you can find someone who understands your consent decree, look in that direction. To the extent that you can find someone who understands the importance of community engagement, look in that direction. But to the extent that you can find someone who knows how to reduce violence, homicides, shootings, robberies, burglaries. You all know. Look in that direction. What I can say to you is that Michael Harrison, our acting police commissioner, embodies all of those qualities and amenities. And I want to share with you all because, you know, this work doesn't get done by itself. So I want to thank those who are part of the Violence Reduction Initiative. Thank you all. Because every morning, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m., not just our commanders in our police districts, but members of our different departments in the city, whether it is housing that deals with boarded-up houses, public works that deals with trash, liquor board that deals with businesses that don't know how to operate in the best interest of the community, transportation that deals with lighting, health department, opioid addiction, homeless services, they all meet because what we want to do is reduce violence in our city. And it's not just about policing, it's about all those other issues. And even our Office of Employment Development goes out with our fire department, knocking on people's doors. One, the fire department to make sure that people have detectors, smoke detectors. And then the Office of Employment Development asking folks if they need jobs. And now we have mobile units moving around our neighborhoods and communities to bring jobs to people so we can get them off the corners. And now we've added lawyers on the mobile unit so that we can expunge records. But let me just say to you all, we have to build police officers in our own city. So what we've done is gone to the state, and I want to thank our innovation team, and certified our cadet program. What that means is that we can take young people out of high school who can come out of high school making $35,000 and then plan their 2 years moving towards our police academy where they come out of the academy making $52,000, which is competitive to our surrounding jurisdictions. We can build this police department, and we've got to do that. But you all didn't come to hear me this evening, and I wanted to give a shout out because somebody asked me tonight when I walked in, is Baltimore City Community College still free? The answer is yes. We made Baltimore City Community College free so that our children coming out of high school don't have to worry about how they get to the next level. And then Coppin State University said, if you finish there with your AA degree, you can come to Coppin State University for free. And all of our colleges and universities have leaned in, including Hopkins with its $1.9 billion, and Morgan State University and all the others to help provide grants and opportunities for our young people. But again, you didn't come to hear me. We came to hear from our commissioner. And let me tell you, one of the things he said to me was, on our first walk through the neighborhood, I prayed that it wouldn't be real cold or snowy. Well, it didn't snow that day. But he called the other day and he said, you didn't tell me about all of this. Because you all know he's coming from the warm weather of New Orleans. Welcome to Baltimore.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Next, we'll hear from Public Safety Committee Chair and fellow Mervo alum, Councilman Brandon Scott.
Thank you, Shantae. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. For those of you who haven't been here in a long time, welcome to the most applied high school in Baltimore City, Mervo High School. Mr. Commissioner, thank you for being here. Northeast Baltimore, I'm going to be very quick. We all know that if we have a police commissioner that isn't getting the job done, I'm going to be the first to let them know. But this gentleman is the real deal. He and I met a couple weeks ago. So he knows that we live in the largest district with the most calls for service, with the most of everything and the least of everything. He already knows that and understands how we can change and adapt that. He knows what we have to do to modernize our police department, to hold people accountable, to put people where they need to be so that they can do the things that you all want them to do. He understands that. So I think that we have a blessing in this man. This is someone that I think that we can build success around and hold him up, that we all can have a better city and a safer city. So thank you. Thank you to my principal, Principal Langston, for having this, Mayor. Thank you for putting these on. I'm sorry, Mr. Commissioner, I missed you for 2 nights. Last night I had to represent the council at the City High School Basketball Championship, and I was out of town last Friday. But thank you for coming here. Thank you guys for being here on your anniversary. And if you're looking for anniversary dinner ideas, sir, just to help you out, the best crab cake in the city is at Coco's, half a mile away. So thank you everybody for being here. Now let's hear from the commissioner.
He's trying to shake. Next, we'll hear from the Acting Police Commissioner, Michael Harrison.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you all for being here, giving up your Friday night. I really appreciate that. Coming to hear a few words from me, but I'm really here to hear from you. Thank you, Shantae, for doing a great job. Was Allie putting all this on, doing all this, all the people who made these possible. 5 nights last week, 4 nights this week. I really want to take my hat off to you. Done with the spirit of excellence, and that's a compliment to our mayor who put this dynamic team together. So thank you for having the spirit of excellence, and thank you for all this, and for this wonderful opportunity to come and lead the men and women of the Baltimore Police Department. She called me, and she didn't tell me about the snow. She said, "Oh, I want you to come and be the police commissioner." And she offered me the job. She did not tell me about the 4 inches of snow we had the other day. And so it was a bit of a shock, but that's okay. I'll get over it. I'm here. Thank you for this wonderful, wonderful opportunity. I've been blessed to be in all the meetings, the citizens and residents from every community, and now we're here from the Northeast. I really appreciate you being here. To the men and women of this district, I met with them today, been meeting with all of the officers across the department by day, shaking hands, hearing from the police officers by day, hearing from the community members by night. I was at their roll call today. Thank you for the work you do, for your sacrifice and your commitment to the profession and your commitment to Baltimore Police Department. Thank you, and keep doing a great job. And these are your leaders. And so there's so many people here. I see the Deputy Commissioner, thank you, brought his mother out tonight, thank you. And there's so many people from our department who are here in uniform doing the great community work, but there are a number of people who are not in uniform, who are really concerned and really interested and really dedicated to the police department. Both present and past members are all here, and I appreciate all of you being here. Last but not least, I want to talk about our council members. I know you said you missed 2 nights, but you've been with me every night in spirit, and you've been with at all the other meetings. I appreciate that. My council president has been here every night. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much, Mary. All of the good work that everybody's doing, and the support you and the love you've shown my wife and me, it's been incredible, and I appreciate that. Last but not least, 27 years. And we're giving it up to be here with you. That's our commitment to the city of Baltimore. Everything's gonna be closed when we finish. But thank you for this ride. My wife had a great career, holds an MBA, was working on a doctorate, and gave all of that up because she knew the importance of this assignment that I have, which is more than just a job offer from the mayor, which is actually a calling from God. I had one before, and I have another one this time. I accepted it, but in order for me to accept it, I had to have the support of my wife. My children had to understand the importance of what I was doing. They're grown now, and they're on their own, but they had to understand. My family had to understand. But more importantly, you had to understand, and you did, and I appreciate you being on this journey with me. And so we met when we were 13. She was 13, I was 15. So we've actually been together since we were kids. Though we're married 27 years tonight, we've been together since we were little kids. And we've been on this journey, went to high school and dated all through high school and college. I joined the National Guard out of high school, so I do have 8 years military experience. Joined the police department at 21, took on the most challenging assignment, worked in different parts of the city, but always in the most challenging assignments, worked my way to a narcotics unit during the mid-90s at the height of the crack epidemic in American policing, but it was also the height of police corruption in American policing. Found myself every time I saw a drug dealer, seems like in New Orleans that is, that I always saw a corrupt police officer. And since they had such little regard for the work I was doing, I had little regard for their careers. So I did what was necessary to make sure I did my job but made sure that they didn't have one. That got the attention of the chief. It got the attention of the chief, who promoted me to sergeant and said, I need you to help me clean the department up. Let's go to internal affairs, where I spent the next 9 years. 4.5 years as a sergeant, another 3 or 4 years as a lieutenant, doing all the work in internal affairs, helping make the department a better department, cleaning up the image and getting rid of people who did not need to be, not only in the New Orleans Police Department, but didn't need to be in the profession. Doing that work, it got the attention of the chief, who made me a commander, and then put me back over narcotics, intelligence, vice, all of our federal partners. I did that for a year before taking the assignment of a district. Being the commander of a district like you, Major, it was the biggest district in New Orleans, separated by water, so it was really like a city within a city. The largest population of homeowners, largest population of renters, largest population of housing developments, all wrapped up in one district. And I was the commander. 2 of the 3 years we were able to reduce crime, which got the attention of the mayor, who called me and tapped me on the shoulder and told me he wanted me to be the chief of police, and then promoted me over all of our deputy chiefs. So the person who was my boss on Friday became my subordinate on Monday. Strange dynamics. But I was able to handle that. And so for the next 4 years, I worked for Mayor Mitch Landrieu, who had a real forward-leaning, very progressive approach to dealing with crime, and a multifaceted, multi-disciplined approach. While we were reforming a police department, and I came into being the chief in the 2nd year of a consent decree, just like I'm doing here in the 2nd year of a consent decree. So it is not by coincidence, I believe, that I'm here now. Working with that mayor in the consent decree, I wanted to own it. Though we were under a federal mandate to conduct an entire 100% makeover of that police department, which was as bad as they said we were. The Department of Justice in 2012 said the New Orleans Police Department is the most troubled police department in America. I took on the assignment, I wanted to change it. And I said, there will come a time they will never say that about us again. That's my commitment to you now. There'll be a time that they'll never say another bad thing about us again. So, 4 years, I'm working with Mayor Landrieu. I take on the consent decree, create the most dynamic team of high-performing leaders. They were high-charging, high-performing all day, every day. And then we were able to change the way we saw ourselves, and we were able to change the way the citizens saw us. But it took time, working with being the murder capital of the world at the time, and then working on a culture that really needed to be changed. So all of that was happening, very same dynamics that I'm faced with pretty much right now. Then I was fortunate enough, after 4 years, a new mayor came in, and the community kind of put a lot of pressure on that mayor. She asked me to stay on as her chief, and I did. For the last 8 months, and here I am now. So along through this process, I was very blessed to be able to put myself through school, earned a bachelor's and a master's degree in criminal justice. I was able to go to some of the finest professional development leadership schools, both public and private, in America, to help get me ready for chief jobs and then ready for this job. I was ordained as a deacon in my church in '03, and again as an ordained minister in 2010. And so there are a lot of things that I think I bring to the table, and the most important thing for you to know is that I am committed to being here now, to helping this city do what it can to reduce crime and change a culture of violence that exists. It's a culture because the culture is making people make those decisions. And I'm here to change the culture of professional policing so that we can have a high-performing, really excellent police department that delivers excellent service to the residents of Baltimore and its visitors. And so I want to end right there. That's a little bit about me. I'm excited to hear about you. Thank you for coming, and I'm free right now to answer all of your questions. Once again, thank you for this great opportunity, man.
You continue to see City Hall staff members walk white sheets down to me. We currently have about 3 dozen people signed up to speak tonight. And so, so that the police commissioner can hear from every single person, we would ask you to be mindful of the timer. We have a couple of questions directly from the audience. How can schools work with police to ensure safety? Specifically, what is your stance on whether school police should be armed?
So the second question first, that is a decision that we've been talking about. That really is a decision between the parents of the students who attend the schools and the school system and the school board. I come from a jurisdiction where the school police were on, and we had members of that police department assigned as school resource officers in those schools who were armed also. So it can work, but only in the right conditions where the training is sufficient, that we want to make sure the training is sufficient to make sure members of that security team has limited scope and authority, but sufficient training to do what's necessary in the school, but not step into the functions of policing that's expected by the Baltimore Police Department. It is really a decision between the parents and the school system. If that decision is made, then we can scope the training to make sure that they're sufficiently trained, which I believe in this case they are by the Maryland standards, but that there's a scope of authority that they fully understand, and when there are incidents, who will be the appropriate investigating agency and to what standard those incidents get investigated. And I believe once we can get the answers to that, the parents and the school board can make that decision. Now, making sure that the school principal has the correct protocols, the best practice protocols for what to do when incidents happen, that the faculty members are highly trained on what to do when various things happen, and then the second part, what to do when the police arrive. So there are two courses of actions. When something happens, what do you do? When the police get there, what do you do? That not just this school, but all schools have that, fortunately. And then making sure that we have blueprints to every single public facility in the city so that we can master that, and when our specialty teams arrive, we know where to go and what to do. But I think creating a training structure that gives training to all schools about the same practice of what to do when something happens and what to do when the police arrive, and then we can train and practice on that. I think that is the absolute best thing to do in the short term.
Thank you. The second question before we take audience questions. What will you do to stop the majors of the Northeastern District from being a revolving door? Every good one is gone immediately. Stability is key.
Good question, and I've actually heard that question in all of the districts, or most of the districts. Continuity in leadership is extremely important. That's what I believe the mayor wants at the leadership level with me. That's what we want at the leadership level at the district level. So it is important, and I understand that dynamic. I want to make sure that the commanders are always performing at a high level. To that point, I cannot speak to what happened before I got here. What I can tell you is that when people perform, I will reward good performance. So the goal is to have stability, but the goal is to make the commander such a high-performing commander and so good in the community. But what we need is good succession planning. And so when the commander performs well, the major's performing well, that means the captain is being highly trained to someday take over a position. So the goal is not just to make sure you don't have a revolving door with the major. We want the major, but I want the major to rise up and get promoted. But I want to make sure that other people can rise up, and the system of succession planning is so good that when the next leader step in, nothing is lost, nothing is dropped, and you feel the same way because we've trained other leaders to be leaders, and we were so engaged, and the subordinate members under the major were so engaged that when the major stepped away, you didn't know the difference because everybody was performing just as good as the major. That's the goal. Now, yes, we want to have continuity in leadership. And to the extent that people are not promoted or people are not retiring or doing other things, I will do my best to make sure there's continuity in leadership so the gaps are not there and relationships don't get broken and you have to form new relationships. But at the core of community policing, when it is done right, you will not notice the change in leadership because everybody's performing at a high level.
Thank you, sir. Now it's time to hear from you all. When I call your name, please form a line at the microphone here. When it's your turn to speak, share your hopes, concerns, and issues with the acting police commissioner. Remember to reintroduce yourself and tell us what neighborhood you live in. We are streaming this live for folks who are unable to join us tonight, so be sure to speak directly into the microphone. Again, I'll mention that we've got many people signed up to speak tonight, so after you've shared your comment or question, please just take one step to the left of the microphone so that the commissioner can talk to you and answer your question, and also to allow the person that's behind you to step up to the microphone.
My name is Ann Wells, and I'm from the Laurelville area. I am the former chief of the administrative division of the police department. My question for you, sir, centers around manpower. There used to be a time when we walked through the neighborhood or drive through the neighborhood and we would always see patrolmen, foot patrolmen around, and now very seldom. So I am wondering, what is the strategy, what is the plan for recruiting, for training, and also for retaining the talent that we spend so much of our dollars on? And I am also curious to know if there is any consideration being given to civilianizing those components of the police department that can be, so that you can put our resources back on the street.
Thank you. Great question. You actually gave me first of all, thank you. The plan is to, first of all, hear from you, the first part of the plan. But the very question you asked about what's the plan, you answered and gave me the plan. It's about recruitment, hiring, training, and civilianization, all of which are happening and are going to be more robust. There's a plan right now with a marketing strategy, a 21st century high-level professional marketing strategy that will deliver a promotional marketing strategy directed to attract the best and the brightest to join the Baltimore Police Department. We'll unveil that in the very near future. So that was a sneak preview. But equally as important as recruiting and hiring is going to be retention. Retaining the good officers that we have and detectives that we have of all ranks that perform very well and are very skilled, that we don't want to lose, not just to other police departments, but to other professions. So we want to be able to create a great work environment with all types of incentives and reasons for them to want to stay. So the very reasons we want to give people to come, we want to give people to stay. And so there's also a strategy to target the individuals in the department to incentivize them not to leave. That's underway also. Thirdly, civilianization. It's already begun, but it's something I did in New Orleans. It's something I certainly want to do here, is to make sure that positions that could be performed, non-policing positions, that could be performed by professional staff, we will then look to hire as much as we possibly can in professional staff to come in to do the work for professional staff, so police officers can actually go back to the art and science of policing. In the field, detective work, all of the things we need police officers for. That's already underway, and that's a part of my plan, is to make that as robust as we possibly can. And I think there was one other thing you asked about. Yeah. Yes. Good question.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Paulette Schauder, and I live in Mayfield. My question, seeing how she answered one of them, a second one would be, how do you plan on enforcing the traffic laws that are already on the books, as the city streets, the red light cameras cannot do, and actually retain some of the egregious acts that you see? It looks more like a go-kart track sometimes.
Good point and good question. So to answer your question, and the continuation of the first question was the staffing. We also, in addition to recruit, hiring, training, and retention and civilianization, is to create a more effective and efficient department by using smart technology, smart initiatives that reduce burdens. So the next best thing to bringing more people on will be reducing the work we're already doing, which frees up time, and then we can reapply the time into other initiatives, like foot patrols that are so missing, that are everybody in every district has asked about, and I'm sure other people will tell me about that tonight, the absence of foot patrols. Community policing initiatives, bicycle patrols, playgrounds, schools, all of those things, and then very high-level proactive policing that's really targeting what's happening on our street corners and our open-air drug markets. All of that high-level visibility has to come from not only bringing more people in, but freeing up the time to rededicate that time. You asked about the traffic. Building that free time and then redeploying that time to make sure that officers can take the appropriate action. First of all, making sure that we have the correct training to know what the violations are and what appropriate actions to take. They may know now, but we want to reassure ourselves that we have that training, that we can do it. But we want to make sure that we actually have the free time to do that, that doesn't disrupt the patrol and visibility that's needed in other areas to deal with violent crime. And so it's a delicate balance of how much time and devotion on traffic violations versus how much time and devotion to patrols and walking beats to deal with community engagement and trying to prevent violent crime. And so right now we're making assessments of what works, what doesn't work, what we have, what we don't have, and how to get those things so that we can create those smart initiatives for free time for traffic enforcement and for foot patrols. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just as a quick reminder, after you finish asking your question or making your comment, if you wouldn't mind stepping to the left so that the next person can step up to the microphone, that would be great. Thank you. When you're ready.
Good evening, sir.
Good
My
evening.
name is Debbie Dawson. First and foremost, welcome to Baltimore,
Thank
you
you.
and your wife. My question is directed about the, it feels like the us against them mentality of the police force. It doesn't seem to be a good relationship between police and citizens. So if you have a plan of fostering a better relationship between citizens and the police, do you have one?
I do. I had one before and I'll have one again. Like I said, the first part is to hear from you. And I want to be able to create a strategic plan that incorporates what I'm hearing from the citizens. So I don't give you what I think you need, I give you what you tell me you need. Yes, we have a plan. It is never us against them. You'll be hearing me talk about that quite a lot. Our officers will hear me talk about that quite a lot. It is never us against them. There is no such thing as the police and the community. The police and the community are one and the same. We are part of the community we serve. So everything that we do that hurts the community actually hurts ourselves. We hurt us when we do things that are bad for the community because we're part of the community we serve. That is my professional philosophy, and the brightest minds and chiefs around the country have adopted that as well. So going forward, the conversation and the language of the police in the community should be non-existent because we are the community. Having buy-in to that and holding people accountable who don't subscribe to that is going to be a key to changing the culture so that over time we don't feel like you've described how you feel. Thank you.
Commissioner, welcome to Baltimore.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, snow season ain't over yet.
That's okay.
I believe that a competent internal investigation and inspectional components are critical in preventing police corruption and malfeasance. You've already said how you did it in New Orleans. How would you ensure that occurs in your tenure in Baltimore?
That's a great question and a great observation. And yes, I was 9 years there, and it is one of the most, if not the most critical components of any police department because it is the core of how the culture will be. As goes the policies, practices, protocols, actions, and discipline, that will shape the culture. And so I am extremely interested in making sure that we have a robust internal affairs, but it has competent and confident, fair and just investigators that have both the skill set and the ability and the courage to do the work. That's a combination of things you don't always find. Some have skill set but not the courage. Some have the courage, maybe not the authority. We want to make sure that it has all of that, but that it's meeting the national best practice standards of making sure that our investigations are fair and just and thorough because the objective is to seek the truth. It is always about seeking the truth and whatever it takes to get to the truth so that justice is served or so that the discipline is fair and the discipline matches the violation or the training is applied because everything shouldn't be discipline. Some things are training matters. But we want to make sure that it is robust, that it has filled with competent people and leadership. I haven't had a chance to do a major assessment of it, but your point is well taken, that it is one of the core functions that really make or break a police department.
When you're ready, Angie.
Hello, good evening. My name is Angie Winder. I am a resident of the Northeast District Loch Raven community. I want to say first, happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Today is also my anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
I am a widow. I lost my husband. He was a victim to senseless violence. I want to also say that it's very hard for someone to, for me to understand and to see that a person is serious about their take. I've been watching your videos, even though I may not have been there. I'm very involved in the community. I want you to know that I am happy to hear some of the things that you're taking in as far as the trauma, because we're dealing with a lot of trauma, and also your take on just listening to the community. I say all that to say I'm very involved, and remember the name, the face, and if not, I'll find you. But I want you to know that we are holding you accountable. I also want you to know that we need stability. We need someone that's going to stay, someone that's going to listen, and someone that's going to be in our village with us. And I just have 2 questions because some were already answered. How will you engage with all communities and all residents fairly? I don't want to have to link up with this person and that person and a clique to get to you. How would you engage with everyone? And the second one is, what are your plans, if any, to support reentry efforts? Because I do believe that is part of our problem here in Baltimore City.
Good point, good questions. I didn't know where you were going with the anniversary, so that's not the, I'm not saying happy anniversary.
I kept my comment for today.
All right. So we're sorry about that part of your life. The way I'm going to engage the community, you actually answered your own question. It's what you're looking at right now. And so I'm here to do this as often as I need to and as often as you think I should. And so you're not going to have to look far from me because I'm a community-oriented type of police chief. I'm just going to be really embedded in the community. And though there's a lot of really high-level work I have to do as the police commissioner, hearing from you kind of shapes the day-to-day decisions of how we need to run our organization and how we need to deliver services. So what you're seeing is actually the way I'm starting is hopefully what you'll see over my tenure. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here. We live here. They cut up my Louisiana driver's license yesterday, so I can't go back. I'm a registered voter here. All of that's done. I'm here to stay. I'm here to take on this assignment. I knew this was not a 1, 2, or 2-year or 3-year assignment. And I know what this means because I know what it meant before. And so I'm fully committed, we're fully invested. And reentry is an extremely important part because we're talking about making sure people are rehabilitated, that people have options, that people have good things to keep them extremely productive so they don't go back to doing what they did that got them in trouble in the first place. So I fully support that. Any initiative, whether it's within a department, in city government, or in the private sector, or for the nonprofit, please, we want to be good partners because that's as valuable work as helping people change their minds about making those bad decisions in the first place. Thank you.
The 2 next questions we have are from the audience, and then we'll call folks to the podium again. As the commissioner should be aware, there are concerns with increasing ethics violations, intimidation, and harassment by sworn officers. What is the commissioner's strategy for increasing accountability and discipline from the patrol level and up?
Good question. It really is about the entire police department, and it's about systems of accountability, some of which are here, but a lot of systems are not. And we need to build strong systems of accountability that inform us through technology and through human interfacing about what happens that's good, that what happens that's not good. And then how to have those things reported to us through supervisors and through mid-level managers and through the command staff. Then those systems of accountability that drive what's to be done when the actions are the correct actions, what's to be done when the actions are not the correct actions, what's to be done when there was no action taken at all levels. So it's really about building a machine that tells me what I don't know and gives me the insight of what to do for those who fail to do the right thing. And when people know and don't do the right thing, then there has to be consequences about that, training and discipline to make sure we change the culture. We want to know about things that are good, but we want to know about things that we need to improve on. And so when it comes to corruption, it's all about building systems of accountability, but accountability works hand in hand with transparency. What we need to do is be extremely accountable and hold people accountable at every level for what they do well and what they do not do well, but then be transparent with you, the community, on what we're doing about self-correcting our own problem. That's why we're in a consent decree today, and the consent decree is an arrangement and an agreement between the city and the United States that we agree to these 510 issues that need to be corrected. And so we're in this by a mandate, but we want to change because change is necessary, and we want to be good because that's what we ought to want to be. And so I will be building systems of accountability that inform supervisors, managers, and upper-level leaders of the actions and lack of actions of our members, but systems that hold people accountable at every level for failing to take the correct action.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The second question. Lack of policing, both responsive and proactive policing, by BPD officers is evident in the communities along the city-county border, where residents interact with officers from 2 or more jurisdictions, Baltimore City, Baltimore County, the Maryland Transportation Authority, Maryland State Police, on a regular basis and are able to compare protocol and culture. This lack of action has created zones where suspects and patrol officers acknowledge little or no policing occurs. What is the Commissioner's plan to support proactive and thorough policing, particularly in the areas along the city-county border, while adhering to the mandates of the consent decree?
Good question. So at roll call today, I charged the officers in this district to be extremely proactive. I charged them to be aggressive but not abusive. There is a difference. I charge them that when they see violations, take the appropriate actions. Get out of the cars, engage people, both in an enforcement capacity and in a non-enforcement capacity, because everybody is not committing a violation. And every approach should not be the enforcement approach. And so likewise with the officers today, yesterday at roll call, I did the same thing. And it's what we're doing. It's a directive I gave our deputy commissioner the other day, who forwarded and pushed that message all the way down through and throughout the organization. I have heard that every night at every meeting. There are issues that are real and there are issues that are perceived. And I think there's a balance of both that exists in this department and in many departments about the issues around the country that make officers somewhat afraid to do their job. It is my goal and strategy to train them up, to make sure the training is excellent so that they're both competent and confident on how to do the job. That competence, that confidence on how increases the ability to be more proactive and less fear about what's going, about making mistakes. And then making sure that when they do the right thing, positive and good behavior is rewarded. Instead of always focusing on discipline for the wrong behavior, we have to equally focus on reward for the positive behavior. And that positive reinforcement makes us perform at a higher level. It's been proven, it's a science to it.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome. My name is
Thank you.
Alicia Champlin, and I'm from the Westfield area. I have 2 questions. One, with the crime and the murders that we've been having in the city, and just with the ones that have happened yesterday and the one today, do you have any plans already in the making for handling this type of situation that we've been going through for, more than a year? And also, my second question is, the community and us you were talking about with the police force, there are officers that are not part of the community. They live in the county. So what is their investment in the community that we have here? And I mean, they don't really have an investment because they don't live in the city, they live out in the county. So, we're having that situation and you see it. Do you have anything for those plans?
Good points, and thank you for those questions. And yes, we have plans. There will be a design to make sure that the homicide unit, because there are a number of issues. There's a staffing issue, there's a competence issue, a confidence issue, quality of investigation issue. It's going to be resource driven, but we want to make sure, but it's supervision, management, and leadership also. And it's a combination of all of it that works together at the same time. So while we need perhaps more detectives, we need to assess to make sure that they're actually right now performing at the level we need to perform. Certainly they're overworked, but good supervision, management, and leadership will address some of it so that they're deployed properly, and the resources are given to them adequately. Certainly we need to bring more people in, but that speaks to the recruitment, hiring, and training issue. The retention issue, keeping people from leaving. All of it, making sure that they're highly trained and highly skilled and are properly supervised. Now, that's all part of the internal part. The external part is, let's remember, the people who commit murders, that's their decision. So the plan is to help find a way to change their minds about committing those decisions. The police department can't be inside their head on making that decision. So we have to figure out how to give them education, jobs, training, cure their mental health, their conflict resolution skills, and this culture of violence that makes them think that they have to carry guns. There's the issue of this prevalence and overabundance of guns and illegal guns, and then their decision to carry them and to use them. The decision to pull the trigger is not made at the point when you pull the trigger. The decision to pull the trigger is made when you pick up that gun and stick it in your pants and walk out the door. That decision was made long before they killed somebody. So there's this whole culture of violence that we have to really cure. Otherwise, everybody's going to ask the police, what can you do about why they commit crime? And I want to work on all of it, but there's so weak consequences that people are committing crimes and getting out of jail and doing it over and over again because they do not fear the consequences, either because they're very weak or they're non-existent. Now, it's our plan to work to strengthen all of that. The Violence Reduction Initiative that's being applied right now addresses everything on the front end. Certainly, I need to make sure that I'm working with our legislators and our state's attorney to make sure that we do a good job building quality cases and that there are no gaps on our part that we can be responsible for so that it doesn't happen unnecessarily. Then we need the citizens to actually tell us what's happening when they witness these crimes and find a way to protect them in the process. Because much of it has to rely on what people see, and we all know what's happening and people are seeing it, but the relationships are so bad and the trust is so eroded that people are not telling us what we need. All of that's part of the master long-term strategic plan to improve, to address it, but it's all working already underway to get better. By us being here now is a great start on improving it. But thank you.
Sorry, my second question.
Oh.
About the officers and the commitment of them and us.
Yes, ma'am. That's been a concern every single night. And where I am right now is what was given to me 2 weeks ago. And here I am. And so I believe that there are a lot of great officers from Baltimore Police Department that live in the city. I believe there are a lot of officers from the Baltimore Police Department that don't live in the city, that dedicate their lives and put their lives on the line. Now, while there may be a dynamic of a number of officers who work in the city who don't live in the city, when people call for the police and we show up, the question is not where do you live, the question is will you please help me?
That's right.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rita Cruz. I'm president of Bel Air Edison Community Association, and welcome to Baltimore.
Thank you.
Also, I want to give a shout out to the Northeast Police Department. We have a fantastic partnership and relationship with them. My question to you, and I think it has already been answered, but I'm a visual learner. What does community engagement look like between the police department and the community?
Good question. Police engagement looks like police officers taking the initiative to get out of the car and learn their neighborhood by introducing themselves to the members of the neighborhood. So when we see you out, we're stopping to talk to you and perhaps asking you about your concerns and what's important to you, and maybe getting you to know a little bit about us. It's about showing up at the playgrounds and at the schools to do the very same thing. It's about riding bicycles. It's about just being in the community with uncommitted time to do that, and we're not being pulled from 911 call to 911 call, which is what's happening now, and preventing us from doing that to some degree. So community engagement is a two-way street. I believe it should be initiated by the police, but we need citizens to meet us halfway in that community engagement. We're working to build smart initiatives that reduce burdens, and right now I believe we are overburdened with the amount of calls we're going to handle things because we've been asked to be all things to all people. And then we're getting calls for things that are not police related, and we're getting calls to things that people can perhaps tap other city services for. And then there's some civilianization to do some of the work by hiring professional staff. We will get there by building those systems and freeing up time to give you that visual, that high level of police visibility through police engagement. But we have to initiate that. But that's a cultural shift that we're working on to get out of being so responsive and being proactive. Thank you.
Good evening, Acting Commissioner.
Good evening.
Welcome to our city, and
Thank you,
again,
sir.
happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Secondly, I wanted to appreciate Madam Mayor, Councilman Scott, Council President Young for this transition in the commissioner hiring process. This is what our community's been asking for quite some time, and I think we're seeing it bear fruit, not just in terms of the dialogue that we're having here, but across the city. And I think it's an example of what we could use more of. I think to the point around community engagement, around how to address issues in moving forward, not just through policing, but through public trust, having processes that allow us to have this kind of open dialogue, I think also encourages us to see ourselves for what we are, fellow leaders in our city. So I just want to appreciate you all for doing this, and also just acknowledge that it was needlessly tense to get us to this point. But with that said, we're very happy with the results so far. My question relates to...
Would you mind reminding...
Oh, sorry, Sergio Espana?
Thank you.
We're from Remington, formerly from Ender Garden, so I think I can be here tonight. My question relates to local control of the police department. We're one of the very few jurisdictions in our city, in the country, for a city of our size, that actually is being run by we have a police department that's run by the state. This has been the case since the Civil War, when, for reasons that I can't understand, it made sense for the federal government to take control and then put it back to the state legislature, and since then, we haven't had control. So my question to you is, if you were to have local control of the police department as you had previously, what do you think would be the benefit of that in terms of your leadership and in terms of the points that you've been raising tonight?
So if I had that, and yes, that was the case in New Orleans, but it's a very different dynamic here. So the question is if. I think me being the biggest advocate for the police department, to get the police department the resources it needs to be successful, to bring in the best training, to bring in the best technology, to have the best recruiting and hiring process, the best incentives for people staying. We want to make sure that I have, with partnerships with our mayor and city council, to be able to get those resources. I think because of community engagement initiatives like the one we're in right now, kind of drive the decision to our local legislators of what we need and what the citizens are actually asking for. Now, it is really about me being an advocate for the members of our department and getting those resources. But I report directly to our mayor, and I am committed to turning the department around, to bringing down violent crime, to changing a culture, doing all the things, but she committed to me to giving us those resources. I think however I get those resources, I need to manage them most effectively and efficiently. But to me, the most important thing is that I have the capacity to get those resources.
Good evening, my name is Linda Dale Stewart, and I am a resident of the Chums community.
Good evening.
And I just want to let you know the Chums community is a very strong neighborhood association. I'm warning you that right now we have his name is Mr. Mark Washington, and so it's, where is he? Yeah, there he is going out the door. And then we have Murray Pack Clock. We all work together to try to make it happen. I am very concerned about our young people. I too have a master's degree in criminal justice, but mine is that I want to keep people from going to jail and committing crimes. And so I'm very much interested in the young people. We once had a police choir with the young people from all over the Baltimore city. We once had a POW program in all parts of the city. And I want to know, have you thought about anything things that we can do to bring our young people? Because when I was in school, the instructor used to say, focus on them young people, because they are our next leaders. So I'm asking you, have you thought about what we can do as far as capturing our young people and bringing them back in, or bringing them in?
Yes, ma'am, I have, and great question. And so we're all thinking about our youth, because the youth will take our places, and we will turn this police department and this city over to them, and they will be our government leaders, and so we are concerned about them. So the city is really involved in dealing with youth, making sure they have both educational and work opportunities. As a matter of fact, there's workforce development and there's workforce opportunity right now. As of the conversation I think we had yesterday, was up to about 13,000 applicants for jobs this summer, which is far exceeds the 8,000 or 9,000 that I'm reported to learn about from last year. With only 2 or 3 weeks left in the process, could reach 18,000 to 20,000 jobs. And we've committed, by working with all of our philanthropic organizations, foreign nonprofit organizations, that they committed to giving jobs to the young people. I was actually in that meeting with the mayor. So we're concerned about it, but we do need more programs, not just jobs. Now, having lost about 400 or 500 police officers, like I said, we've been asked to do all things for all people, and we've become extremely responsive because we don't have the time to be proactive and do all the other things like PALs and the other thing, because every single person is doing something that the citizen is calling us to do. So right now it's about restructuring and making sure technology is properly applied. All the proper initiatives are coming into the department, whether it's technology or other really conceptual type of programs, to free up time. And as we free up time, you're going to see us build back a great community policing initiative like PALs and like some of the other things, to work with the city and our foreign nonprofit organizations. So it's not just on the police for the programs, but we want to be a good partner with those who have them already and can make them stronger.
I just want to encourage you to please utilize our colleges. We have a lot of colleges in here, and
Yes.
you know, when you were a student, they worked you to death for the internship, didn't they?
Yes.
And volunteer, and that's what they did for me. And a lot of our young people in these colleges, they are looking for an opportunity, and I'm going to ask you, would you please consider them?
Yes, ma'am. Look, we were
Thank you.
with all the college presidents this week who committed to working with the city and the police department on anything we can come up with that can work, because they want to be a part of the solution too. But great observation, great question.
Our next 2 questions from the audience. What realistic trainings do you see as an immediate need for the Baltimore City Police Department?
There are a lot of trainings. There are skill-specific trainings that I think we all need to make sure our skill sets stay up high so that we can deliver high-quality police services to you, the residents, and to our visitors of Baltimore. That's always something we're working on. But the 2 things I think that are really important are bias-free policing and implicit bias training, which teaches us about the biases that we have of ourselves and how we have a worldview and how we look at other people because of our own upbringing and the things we internalize as our worldview because of that upbringing and education and family and religion, politics that shape that worldview. We have to overcome those biases because they're naturally in us. They're always there, but we have to overcome them and treat people with dignity and respect, fairness, equity every single time, regardless of how we grew up and view the world and view other people. Implicit bias training is what really helped turn the police department in New Orleans around, to help officers start understanding how to treat people better. That's number 1. Another program is called EPIC. Ethical Policing is Courageous. And while implicit bias helps us understand others and we get to treat citizens better, EPIC, or Ethical Policing is Courageous, is a peer intervention program that teaches officers how to handle each other. So while we're trained to deal with watching citizens escalate their behavior and then respond appropriately, EPIC teaches us how to understand escalation in police officer behavior. So I should step in front of my colleague when I see him or her escalating that could turn into a bad decision, and I take over. And what happens is, it's all about active and passive bystandership. Bystandership is just watching something happen. You either do something about it or you don't. EPIC is about teaching officers how to intervene on behalf of another officer who could be escalating and down the path to a bad decision. So rather than having to make a bad decision, and the old culture of policing is, I'll tell a lie to help cover up for you, and then we both get in trouble, and then you did a bad thing, but because I covered it up, I'm the one that gets fired. Well, we do away with that. We help prevent the bad thing in the first place. So now we're helping save careers. So what used to be what we call loyalty is displaced loyalty. Now we're teaching loyalty on the front end by helping preserve and protect each other by preventing bad decisions from happening in the first place. Those two trainings are on the way.
Thank you, sir. Second question from the audience. Why do we keep saying we know who the crime families are, but no good results?
Why do we say?
Why do we keep saying we know who the crime families are, but no good results? I'm going to make the assumption that that means we know who the crime families or who the criminals are in Baltimore City, but we aren't seeing results as residents and citizens.
That's a difficult question to answer. What I can tell you is that I'm briefed every day about the work that goes on within the Baltimore Police Department. Arrests that are made against drug dealers, arrests that are made against people carrying illegal guns, arrests that are made about people shooting other residents of Baltimore, stabbing other residents. I'm seeing the work that's being done. I'm being briefed about the investigations that are ongoing. I'm being briefed about investigations that we're partnering with state police, FBI, DEA, ATF, U.S. Marshals, and other law enforcement agencies. So the work is being done. Arrests are being made. Sometimes it's not brought to you in a way that you fully grasp what's being done. It is never enough because there are more things being done than enforcement actions being taken. So I can assure you that the officers are working and we are collaborating with our law enforcement partners to do that. I think when citizens say we know who are committing the crimes but nothing's being done, it's a lack of capacity, it's a lack of competency, it's a lack of information coming to us to help us make those cases. It's a lack of evidence. Some of it is our fault, but a lot of it is because there's a lack of communication between citizens and police officers. We don't always have what it takes to make a good criminal case. And that's why we have to work on relationship building so much and so hard so that information flows to us and from us so that we can build good quality cases. And we do our part in creating a high-performing department that builds those cases and they don't get kicked out because of mistakes we make.
Thank you, sir.
My name is David Kramer, and I live up the Alameda in a neighborhood called Glen Oaks. Thank you for being here and spending all this time. I hope you take care of yourself and get some rest.
I am. Thank you.
Good. So I have a question about Johns Hopkins and their effort to arm their security personnel. And I understand that you've had similar experience in New Orleans with private universities and their own police forces. Could you talk about how you dealt with that? I understand that they got into problems, and in fact, at least the Tulane University chief of police had to resign because of some of those difficulties. How was your experience with that, and what is your position on Johns Hopkins having their own armed police?
Great questions. There are 7 universities there, 4 private, 3 public institutions, and all 7 have armed police departments. We entered into memorandums of understanding with all of the college police departments, and I, the chief, limited their scope of authority and jurisdiction. Tulane, like Johns Hopkins, has a main campus and a hospital that are not in the same part of the city. So the police work actually at the hospital and at the main campus. The other private universities are all on one campus. And so their MOUs, or memorandums of understanding, that give them limited scope of authority, limited scope of jurisdiction, and in that limited scope of authority, the New Orleans Police Department actually handled certain crimes handled on campus, like all sexual assaults were investigated by the police department. All shootings were happened by the police department, though there really weren't any shootings on any of the campuses. Any use of force or any allegations against a member of their department, our internal affairs was handling those investigations. And so as long as the university presidents and the chiefs agreed to the memorandums of understanding, they were allowed to have jurisdiction, because I actually authorized them to be police departments in the city. I became the chief, they were already police departments. And so they agreed to those memorandums of understanding, so it can work. As long as they don't step outside of their jurisdiction and begin to perform police functions in the city with a different standard set of policies, trainings, and protocols and practices that are very different from the Baltimore Police Department, whose training and standards are extremely high now because of a consent decree. And so while we're in the consent decree and they are not, we want to make sure that although their property sits within our city, their scope and authority is really limited to their campus. And the crimes that we want to investigate, we investigate, and allegations of them are investigated by us. And it's coordinated effort in the crime deployment strategy. It's a coordinated effort by a chief where their chief and their leadership is directly tied to the commander of a district where the university sits. So now that's a lot, but it can work. But it's about us in a coordinated effort controlling their scope of authority and jurisdiction while they handle what they deem necessary on their campus. And the reporting of crimes is to us. So when Baltimore City reports its annual crimes to the FBI, and in the future it will be the National Incident-Based Reporting System, that we capture all the crimes from a campus so they're not double reporting or underreporting or failing to report, that we actually capture everything that happens within the city. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Shane Bryan.
Good evening.
Good evening. A very proud member of the Edna Gardens Lakeside Civic Association and the Northeast Community Organization, and we greatly appreciate you saving the best district for last in this process, especially under Major Preston right here. I just wanted to share with you, so our neighborhood association just last month entered into a formal partnership with the Open Society Institute to start an intensive planning around micro-community policing strategy, where we'll be going door to door, hosting lots of community meetings to talk about what should policing look like in our community, and how can we as neighbors build our skills so we don't always have to call the police for neighborhood disputes or things that we might be able to use other city resources for instead of bogging down the police department. My request of you, and if you have any comments, I'd love to hear them, is that we maybe use this as a model across the city to build up more skills and resiliencies in our neighborhood, while at the same time having community leaders and neighbors be able to have a say in what policing looks like in their community.
Very good. And certainly I support that, because at the core of community policing, which is a philosophy, it is not a plan. Although you heard me talk about engagements and initiatives, community policing is not those. Those fall under the philosophy of community policing. So in that philosophy, the commander and the people within the district have the autonomy to deploy their resources, number one, to accomplish the objective of answering citizens' calls, answering citizens' complaints, but being visible and patrolling to deter crime, displace crime, arrest people who commit it by enforcing laws, but have strong community policing engagement initiatives, of which partnerships with the community are vitally important. And some of the decisions on the community policing strategy should be informed by the community. So with that said, she has the autonomy to have you and members of your community work with the police department, and to the extent that an initiative collaboratively agreed to by you doesn't compromise the response to other violent crimes and the patrol strategy, she has the autonomy to do that. And that's what we want to do, is give our commanders the training and the authority to carry out a great community policing philosophy. But community policing doesn't necessarily mean the police doing it. Community policing is about the community policing. So it's a collaborative effort. It's not just us, it's all of us having input and working together on it. And thank you for that.
Norwood Corbett is my name, and
evening.
I'm from Edna Gardens Lakeside. Welcome.
Thank you.
We are grateful to have you. And if you're looking for a church home, consider Hubert Memorial Church. Just wanted to throw that out to you. I'm part of a ministry, Commissioner, called Mentoring Male Teens in the Hood. We work with young males between the ages of 8 and 18. And one of the biggest concerns that we have faced with them when we start to dialogue with them about the relationship and what their thoughts are about police officers, it's a disconnect. And I wanted to hear your thoughts and views on that portion. And then the second question I had is recently, State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby made a ruling that she would her department would no longer try cases of marijuana. And I also wanted to hear your perspective on that. How would the police officers look at that moving forward?
Two great points, and thank you for that. And thank you for the work you do. Your pastor will be very proud of you. Working with young men, working with youth, that's very important. We absolutely need to do a better job of our engagement with young people, especially young men. And for too long across America, everything that we've been doing is in the enforcement capacity, so they only see us as the enforcers. And that has become there's a negative stigma that they have on us because they only see us in that capacity. Now, I have no doubt that members of the Baltimore Police Department have people who are very engaged dealing with youth, and it's not always about enforcement, but generally across America, that's how young people see it. So we have to do a better job becoming more of the guardian and not the warrior, and engaging and participating in non-enforcement activities like coaching, like mentoring, like adopting a kid to really motivate, mentor, and cultivate a young person, a young man. That's hard to do when we're doing all the other things and having lost so many police officers, and now we're kind of forced to be responsive to the important things like violent crime. And so as we build systems to help us find free time, and as we grow our ranks, putting people back into good community policing initiatives like mentoring programs is going to be a big thing that we have to do. But we have to have the people who work for us have the will and the capacity and the appreciation of what it takes to reach a young person and change their perspective of us. While we improve ourselves, I'm asking the members of the community and our faith-based leaders, we talked about this at our meeting with all the faith-based leaders on yesterday. I need the members of the community to help change the narrative of how we teach our children about what police are, who we are, and why we're here, and what we're really supposed to do. Because as long as families are telling the children, don't trust the police, and when they walk up to you, walk away, no matter what we do, we're gonna meet with that resistance. So it's a two-way street, and I'm gonna work to make sure our department delivers that level of service and engagement so that we can show ourselves trustworthy to citizens, especially to young men. But I need the narrative to change. We need the narrative to change of how people are teaching their children to receive that engagement from police and not run from it and not reject it, but also engage us and allow us to be the mentors that we want to teach ourselves to be. Okay. And the marijuana issue. We met on our first day. The state's attorney and I met on our first day. We talked about a number of things, great meeting, and we talked about that. That was not a change in the law. The law still says marijuana possession is illegal. What she did was a change in her department's policy that they will not prosecute. We agreed to communicate going forward on policy changes from her office that affect us, likewise policy changes from us that affect her. So we can create a plan of action on what to do about it. We really, from what I've learned from my first day, don't really make many simple marijuana possession arrests. It's only been a few hundred for a city this size over the course of a whole year, from years past when it was thousands. And so we've really reduced that because it's been decriminalized in the state for a long time now. So the department has reduced its marijuana arrests. I would say that only when circumstances necessitate a mandatory arrest, because the circumstances dictate it, only we will deal with it. Right now, our focus is violent crime, violent offenses, and violent offenders, and not non-violent offenses. Make sense? All right, thank you.
Hello, my name is Coley Tingala.
Good evening.
I am, pleasure to meet you, brother. Glad you are here.
Thank you.
I'm a professional social justice entertainer and an educator with Baltimore City Public Schools, teaching a social change theater performing arts program in the west side of Baltimore. Want to give a shout out to my school, Augusta Fells Savage Institute of Visual Arts High School, housed in the old Harlem Park building just below Sandtown, Winchester. I have two quick questions for you, one of which how I'm going to say this is out of passion and love, which could possibly be misconstrued as anger and vitriol. What I am so concerned about is the criminalization of African black people throughout this city, particularly in certain neighborhoods where their bodies, our bodies and our beings are not respected. When I've gone into white communities considered affluent and white, where disgusting behavior under the guise of a festival, a sporting event, naming some communities, Roland Park, Johns Hopkins, Charles Village during their festival, Fells Point, Canton, where I've been in the presence where young white people of all ages, are acting disgustingly, drinking open container alcohol, spewing out profanity at police officers that made me cringe as a 56-year-old black man, and I've seen nothing but deference to them when I've been in the presence of African black folk in West Baltimore, East Baltimore, Cherry Hill, Park Heights, Sandtown, Winchester, and when they just tell a police officer, no, you can't make me do this, or say, why are you bothering me, or slam to the ground and their bodies violated. I teach every day, and I have my babies come into my classroom, and I've seen them abused by police officers. And I just want to know, what are you going to do in your position to end this and actually address it honestly? Don't put it under the guise of programming and training, but actually make sure that that systemic, vile, putrid disrespect of African black life will change within your police department. That's
Baba?
one of my concerns.
Baba.
Yeah.
Hi.
No.
So the timer actually went off about 30 seconds ago, and I let you wrap up that first question.
Okay. I know. All right.
So,
that question.
So I just want to check in for a second
check
so that
in.
we can allow the police commissioner to answer your question. And I want to be mindful of the over 24 folks who have signed up to ask questions, and the time is 8:20. So, and the police commissioner is going to be around after the session is over if you'd like to continue your conversation with him.
I had a bit of an issue with that, but I'll let you slide. I know you personally. I know you're doing your job. I don't appreciate how my students would say, you coming for me. But I don't let you slide on that, darling.
I would never come for you, Baba. I would never come for you. Commissioner?
I understand your point, and I see your passion. I can appreciate your passion and distinguish between what's passion and what's anger. And I get it. I'm here to make sure that we create a department and improve the department and create the best department that serves you well, a department that delivers police services in a very constitutional way, that's fair, just, and equitable for everybody. Perhaps what you've been seeing is what put us into a consent decree. So we're in it, and it mandates that we change a culture, that we change practices, protocols, policies, training, all of it, so that we can recreate ourselves. We can't fire everybody and start hiring 3,000 people in one day. So it's about retraining and recultivating and reshaping the way we think. That's what's happening. And a lot of that great work has already begun before I even got here, but now it's time to improve it and put it on a fast track. So it's one thing we're dealing with violent crime, but yeah, you're talking about the culture of a police department where its policies allow decisions to be made to perform like you described. We're wearing body-worn cameras now, and there are policies about that have discipline attached to the proper and improper use of it that speak to us and tell us when officers are performing well and when they're not. And when there are unconstitutional actions that are taken, we now have the ability to know, and we have the ability to take the corrective action necessary. And for those, you heard me, if you were here earlier, for those that failed to take that corrective action, we need to build a machine that guides me on what to do about that too. Some of that exists and some of it doesn't. But we're here now to be the constitutional police department, not that the Department of Justice is mandating us to be, but that we want to be. That's why I accepted the job. We did it in New Orleans, and we're doing it here. Now, I can't speak to what is sanctioned and what is allowed by a state or city or whatever, when people commit violations, we take the appropriate action. That will be what is a mandate of the department. But you're talking about things that are really outside of police control when you talk about festivals and things like that. When violations are committed in the presence of police officers, the local, state, and federal laws, we're supposed to take the protective action. Now, we have to figure out, and keep in mind, this is where we are. We're dealing with a city that has a high volume of violent crime. We're dealing with a consent decree. We're dealing with a shortage of manpower. So it's about making sure we're focused on the things that, what I'm hearing, are extremely important, getting rid of this violent crime and having enough officers to deal with that. Yes, we will protect everybody's rights and we will protect everybody's beliefs, but we're not here to judge anybody's beliefs. And it is not how we feel about what people believe, because we're not here to pass judgment. We're only here to protect everybody and serve everybody.
That really didn't address my question, but thank you.
I'm here to talk to you as long as you want.
We can talk
Yeah.
later. I don't want to hold up.
Give me your phone
But that
number.
did not address the question at all. Yeah.
We're here to be a constitutional department that serves everybody with fairness and with that's just.
I was addressing systemic, institutionalized racism within your police department.
My name is Angela McCauley, Sedonia area in the Northeast District.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir. So my question, I just moved away from, moved my entire family away from Sandtown, Winchester. We bought a house there about 14 years ago, and we were victims of ongoing property crimes, open air drug market, and the last straw for us was some kids were in the back in the rear of the 1100 block of North Carey Street playing with a gun, and two bullets went through the neighbor's daughter's room and almost killed her. And then one bullet was in the back of our daughter's room in the siding. And that was it. We put the house on the market and moved into my mother-in-law's basement because it was just too much. And so I guess my main question to you is, what kind of encouragement would you give someone who's really on the fence about remaining in Baltimore City or moving to another jurisdiction?
Good question, and certainly we're concerned about that. We never want to put anybody in a position or have anybody tell us that they just had to move and they moved. We want to be able to build the kind of police department that's responsive, that can address the issues that you're concerned about, the open air drug markets, the robbery issue, the shooting issue. People, and you've heard me talk about this over the last few minutes, there are people that are carrying illegal guns and are using those illegal guns because they just want to do it and they know they can get away with it. That's one thing. We have to address that. But there are other components that make us effective, like courts and jails, but decisions and why people even make those decisions in the first place. All of that has to work well with us as we reform our department. I want to encourage it to give us a chance. So I can't speak to what happened before I got here a couple of weeks ago, but I'm here and I'm committed to making sure that we give you the kind of police department you pay for, you deserve, and you expect, that addresses your needs. And while it may not always be perfect, we're at least responsive to your needs. Now, I want you to be able to go to your commander, your assistant commander, people in your district anytime and know them on a first name basis. Be at their meetings, invite them to your meetings so that the answers you have, you can get in real time from them. And then you don't have to be in a situation where you're faced with moving. You could have talked about or heard from them about their deployment strategies and maybe even had some good ideas yourself about what to do with some of that. I want you to be directly connected to us through your neighborhood association and through your police commander. I want to encourage you to stay. I think our brightest days are ahead of us. I think the members of this department want to be a good department and they want to be better police officers. So many of them are here right now, and I'm committed to doing that. It's going to take time, but I'm committed to doing that. I moved out of my home, got away from my family, my friends, my children, left a career that was going very, very well. My wife left a great career to come here and to do this. And I think the fact that I came to do that and live here with you, I want to encourage you that I'm here with you. I don't want you to leave, but I want you to use my story of why I came as encouragement of what we think the future could be.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Blessings, Commissioner, you and your wife
Good
on
evening.
your anniversary.
Thank you.
I am Reverend Jeanette Seitz. I just want, it was 3 or 4 people who hit upon what I want to talk about very quickly. First of all, I spent 46 years with the Department of Recreation and Parks.
Yes.
I love that job, and I love Baltimore City, and especially East Baltimore.
Yes.
Hallelujah. In the past, the Department of Recreation and Parks and the police department worked hand in hand with a program that used to be called Officer Friendly. And I think that program was a working program because it taught children from the very early age to 13, which you talked about earlier, how to respect the police, getting the parents involved and the children, so as they grow, that they would know that the police department, the policemen were their friends. And I think that program worked well. So of course we know time changes and people change, and things are a little rough now. Not only did you come in the midst of the snow, but you've come in the midst of Baltimore City with the crime. And that breaks my heart. And I heard the man from Huber Memorial say that they have a program. My question to you is it any way that you can engage in the program? Of course, the community would have to be involved with young men from 18 to 25, and to get them involved in wanting to get education, not necessarily right away to go to college, but to educate them about the goodness of just being a human being. For instance, yesterday, very quickly, I was in Macy's. 3 security guards, I'm finished. 3 security guards.
If you wouldn't mind, wrapping up, please.
Okay, 3
Thank you so
security
much.
guards jumped on a young man, an African-American young man, and beat him down to the ground. And being who I am, because my initiative was working with gangs for the Department of Recreation and Parks, and they beat him to the ground, and I went over to get that young man up off the ground while they were holding him. That's just the way I am. And he looked in my face, in my eyes. He was stealing. My question is, will the police department do something with that age group to get them to understand they don't have to do that, because people care about them? And the Department of Recreation and Parks got to do more, because they have failed us. They're failing our city. They're doing literally nothing. So please help our young people in Baltimore City.
I'm absolutely interested in getting our department to the point where we can identify and mentor young people like that. And you heard me talk about good and bad decisions that people are making. And to the extent that we can build programs within the department, we're happy to do that. But I think right now, there are programs that exist in city government, in nonprofit, in for-profit organizations that already exist that we would love to be a good partner to and a partner with, that exists today. And if they would just let us know, and I know they're there because we have some with the VRI already in dealing with young men. And some of the people in this meeting and in previous meetings talked about heading up mentoring programs for young men and for young women. We want to be a good partner, and but Officer Friendly program is a good program. It was what helped me to have a healthy respect for law enforcement when I was a little kid. To the extent that we have manpower and we free up that time that we're taking to do all the other things that we've been asked to do with the Good Community Policing Initiative, you'll see programs like that come online. But right now, there are programs that exist that we love to partner with to help cultivate and groom and mentor young people so that they can make wise decisions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
First, before I say anything, I want to give honor to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. You know, I heard you say that you were a deacon. I, too, am a deacon. You know, I worship in Freedom Missionary Baptist Church, where the pastor is James A. Johnson.
Yes.
You know,
Can you share your name, please, sir?
My name is Henry Taylor. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, and I'm from Hamilton Hills.
Yes, sir.
You know, the Word of God says that if my people who are called by my name would humble themselves and pray to me, I'll heal the land. You know, God has blessed you and put you in a position where you can do that. The Word of God says in Romans 13 that there is no authority except the authority that's been given to God, by God. So you already know what your mission is. You know what I mean? There's so much pain. It's so, you know, we got poverty and drugs. That's where the guns come from. That's the bottom line. When you got poverty, you got drugs, you got guns. You know, people are hurting. You know, especially the young people. They don't have anything. So they do what they think they have to do in their minds to survive. And you know, and I grew up in the street, and I did some. I'm not squeaky clean. I had my time, but God seen fit to, you know, with His grace and His mercy to keep me. Yeah. You know, the young people out there, they just need to be heard. You need to understand that they don't have anything. You know, when you have no education, no pop, you don't have anything. You know, so I think that's important. I remember when she said something about Officer Friendly. I remember Officer Friendly when I was in the 3rd grade. You know, and that was a wonderful thing. But times changed. God has not changed, though. So I just think, you know, and I didn't really have a question. I just wanted to make that comment. I want to encourage you to stay, you know, to stay still, stay in position. Because anything you do, only God, you can only do through God. Every good thing comes from God. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
We have a few more questions from the audience. I'm going to start with a question that was just submitted by one of our young people from the audience. Can you visit the Good Now Community Center? Can you spare a few officers to our center and a few more to build more centers like ours?
Excuse me. Yes, I can visit. Please let me know and send something to my office, and we will schedule time for me to visit. I visited one just last Wednesday. Happy to visit many more. Yes, the officers in that community, this community, and all the communities can spare time to visit community centers. I believe it's already being done because I saw it being done. We can always do more of it, but we want to make sure that we know when you have your activities, when you have your special events, but we want you visiting us too. And we want kids at our police stations, we want kids at our activities, we want kids celebrating with us. But every time you send us invitations, I believe we're probably not saying no to anything. When people invite officers to centers, to things in community policing initiatives, I want to encourage all of our commanders. They have the autonomy to say yes to absolutely everything when it comes to community and events that are happening and being held by young folk.
Thank you. I just want to check in with the young folks that have just come up to the microphone. Okay, thank you. I wasn't too sure. I wanted to get some clarity around. Yeah, what? To come to the microphone. Well, thank you for joining us. We have young folks that are members of the Explorers program who are interested in becoming police officers for our city.
Thank you. And we have a world-class cadet program. So for young folk who really want to get involved, we have a cadet program that you can join and sign up to learn about what's happening in the police department and be part of a solution and potentially be a pipeline to employment with our organization. That's a great mentoring program that already exists and is very robust, and we invite you and your young people to join.
Here's the next question from the audience before we call the next group of 5. Where can the public get access to read the consent decree from the Justice Department?
It's online. If you Google Baltimore City Consent Decree, it's going to come up. When Mayor Catherine Pugh called me, I had already looked it up. As a chief, I mean, we think about that. As a chief, we kind of know what's happening around the country. I know what's happening with other chiefs. They know what's happening with us. And we're in the consent decree. And so I kind of knew what the Baltimore consent decree was like because it's almost just like the New Orleans consent decree. But if you just type in consent decree, all of them going to come up. But be ready to read 510 paragraphs. It's a long thing, but it's comprehensive. And it really gives you a blueprint of how to get from where we are to where we want to be as a great police department.
Thank you.
My name is Travis Robertson from the Mount Vernon area and the Dorchester area. I'm a law student, educator, mentor and tutor, and soon to be publisher of a weekly newspaper beginning April 19th. So hope you can get it together because I'm doing a lot of reporting on you. So I will be reporting especially on the steps and the progress of the police department. The police commissioner, what is your plan, your real true plan? The city of Baltimore pays you almost $300,000 in salary and luxury benefits, all paid for by the taxpayers of this wonderful, beautiful city. Have you read the U.S. DOJ report about the unconstitutional practices of the Baltimore City Police Department? To the mayor, the city council president, members of the city council that didn't walk out and that are still here, and the police commissioner, when are you going to put back in place the police power centers and put as much money that you spend on overtime that you put into the power centers? Do anyone have an update on Officer Suter's death? Because you know Officer Suter didn't kill himself. What is the policy on keeping witnesses safe? If you want witnesses, you must keep them safe. Do you know about the eye in the sky, the airborne surveillance over our city? Do you support it? The city loitering law. How will you and your officers enforce the city loitering law? Solution: 20 police mobile command vehicles with 24/7 live monitoring of the community where the trucks are. I think these trucks/vehicles need to be in the hard-hit crime areas. Put more cameras up in the community where the vehicles are and where cadets and police officers can monitor the vehicles.
Mr. Robertson?
When will you or the mayor hire social workers and mental health counselors who will go out with the officers on certain police calls?
Mr. Robertson?
Too much is given, much is required. Look, I'm a law student, and let me tell you the federal law. The federal law says that you cannot deprive me of my constitutional right. So if you want a lawsuit, go there with me. Play games. I'm not the one.
Thank you, sir. So just so that we can circle back on the questions that he asked, Acting Police Commissioner, what I documented as his questions were, what are your specific plans for Baltimore City? Him looking for accountability and evidence associated with what the plan's going to be given your salary. I'm interested in whether or not you've read the DOJ report, your position on PAL centers and on the death of Detective Suter, and your position on air surveillance in neighborhoods.
Thank you for those questions. Did he leave? Is he still here? Oh, no. It's okay. It really is okay. First of all, thank you for those questions. It's a lot of questions. I have read the DOJ report. I have read the consent decree. I do not have the answer to why the PAL centers went away. I'm still making the assessment. So right now, my days and nights have been hearing from the police officers and the members of the community. And the first part of my plan is to hear from you so that I don't diagnose and treat a problem that doesn't exist. I don't want to treat you for a problem in the head if you have a problem with your heart. So I first have to make the assessment of what is needed, what we need, who we need, how to get what we need, how to get who we need, and how to make it work, how to pay for it. All of that's part of the initial plan of the assessment. And yes, I have a plan. I have a very comprehensive plan that I gave this mayor, my plan for New Orleans. And in assessing the plan that I gave her for New Orleans.
Do you have any copies here we can take with us tonight?
No, I do not, sir. But that gave her an inclination of who I was, what I was about to make her offer me the job to come here. Now, I'm committed. I left my home, I left everything and retired from a job that I didn't have to. I gave you the courtesy of sitting quiet and giving you my undivided attention. Please extend to me that same courtesy. I was a perfect gentleman in listening to you. Thank you so much. Now, I do not know why things went away. I'm making the assessment now, and to the extent that there are things that work or worked and were highly productive, as I make assessments for our department to make it effective and efficient through cost savings, there perhaps could be the return of some things that worked well. But I don't want to get into the thing of doing what we always used to do. I want to do what's best and what works. And I want to do what's best for the police department to be the kind of department you pay for, expect, and deserve. Not just bringing in national best practice, but being so good that we actually create the national best practices. So what once was doesn't necessarily has to be. If it worked, I'm happy to take a look at it and bring it back. What I want to make sure we're doing is what's best for our people and what is best for us now, not what was best for us at some point in the past. Now, all of the other questions you asked, I'm happy to entertain those kind of offline because I want to have respect for everybody else who has an opportunity to speak. Thank you so much.
Enjoy your paycheck.
Ma'am, your name, please?
Joyce Carter, Northeast from the Bel Air Edison community.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir, and I would like to thank you for making yourself available. Thank you for caring what we think.
Thank you.
As a retired member of the Baltimore City Police Department, 40 years of service, police dispatcher, working on the radio with officers, I know both sides of the coin.
Yes.
I've seen a lot of commissioners come and go, but I think you all have one here that's the real deal. I really do. And
thank you.
What I would like to say, all officers are not bad, just like any other walk of life. They are human beings, they're people, you know, they have the same feelings that everybody else has. So a lot of the respect has gone away from the officers basically on what you said, and it's a whole generation of people. You have a whole generation of new young officers. So I think once people can learn to connect together, they can make changes. And my question to you is, as far as the youth in the city, which I'm also very concerned about, a lot of them are just misguided. Do you think that a curfew for the youth would be a good suggestion? People think it's terrible, but I don't see any reason why some kids should be out on the street all hours of the night, which I myself was held up at gunpoint in my own doorstep by a kid that looked like he was about 17, and this was because I was just standing on the steps at midnight trying to get some air. I just think that for their own safety as well as the public, they don't need to be out at all hours of the night. So what do you think about a curfew? Thank you.
First of all, thank you for your service. Thank you for your many years of service. I believe that curfews work only when, first of all, we have consequences for parents who are not doing what they're supposed to do. And it doesn't matter what city you go in. It doesn't matter what city you go in. If we are enforcing something that parents are undermining and allowing children to do anyway, we're being counterproductive and we're chasing down something that we don't have the manpower to do because there's so many other critically important things we have to do. I'm not saying I don't believe in curfews. I'm saying that I believe in them when applied appropriately. When we have consequences for the children through training and through giving them other opportunities to teach them why they should not be out. But we are really concerned about their safety. Primarily their safety first, and the fact that while out they could be doing some other mischievous things secondly. But we really want to make sure that they have good reasons to be out, like work or school or some engagement opportunity. But we want to make sure their parents are doing what they're supposed to do and that we're not just running in circles enforcing something that's being undermined by a bad system. So the system has to be correct. The juvenile justice system has to be fair, equitable, and just. The parents have to have consequences and be really strong parents, and then we have to be a fair and just department that when we do it the right way, not overly punitive or super aggressive with it. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Well, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Darrell Matthews. I live in the Bel Air Edison neighborhood. My concern really is about that we have some bad cops, but I think there's still some of those still in the force, and they still wreak havoc on the city. as far as their attitudes, their own greed, because the ones that got caught didn't have all the money. Somebody else had some of that money also, and they weren't brought to justice as of yet. But I'm just worried that wanted to let you know that there's more hidden dangers in the force than they're telling you. Because there's some still there, smiling in your face.
Thank you for bringing that to my attention. But if you were here earlier, that's what I talked about. Some of the programs that we want to bring that help officers protect the department and protect the profession by doing the right thing when they see the wrong thing being done. Then rewarding that behavior. So when people do the right thing, I want to reward that. So we change the culture of always punishing bad behavior, but we're rewarding good behavior. But then building systems of accountability that lets me know who's doing the wrong thing and who's failing to take the appropriate action when they know about it and don't do the right thing. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, my name is Alexis Schofield.
Hi, good evening.
Hi. You and your wife, welcome to the city. This is going to be easy. Well, everybody is bombarding you. So this is a personal situation that happened to me last Thursday, and I was right over in the Northern District. I was at a red light, and I was rear-ended. The guy behind me in an old beat-up van was not getting out of the van to even approach me to see if I was okay. And I thought, well, I'm going to get out. I wasn't hurt. I got out, went back to him. He did get out of his van. I asked him for his license and insurance information. He gave me his license. I was able to copy that down. My interaction with him was less than 10 minutes standing there. He fled the scene. He would not give me any insurance information. He kept telling me he didn't have it on him. I knew something wasn't right. I could feel it. So what I said to him was, while you're looking for your insurance information, and I stood right there at his van door while he sat in his van, I said, I'm going to get your tag number, and I don't feel comfortable with this situation, and I'm going to call 911 and have a police officer come. Well, as soon as I even said that, he could not get away from me fast enough. I knew. He almost ran me over. Almost ran me over. I'm really lucky that I got out of the way. My adrenaline kicks in, and I'm fearless. I held on to the side of his door. And as he was driving, he was on an angle. He had to maneuver around the rear end of my car this way. I went with him until I couldn't go any further, or else I would have been dragged down the street. And he left the scene. Now, I know that
Ms.
unless...
Schofield?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I don't know if you heard the timer or not.
No, I'm sorry.
Do you happen to have a question for the police commissioner?
Yes, I do.
Can we wrap up with your question?
The police
Thank you.
department would do nothing for me. It took me an hour and 5 minutes to have somebody come. I called 911 twice. An officer did call me back and say, I'll give you information to give your insurance company. I said, no, I'm not leaving this spot until somebody comes. He came. He was very kind, very, very, very nice and mannerly. He did give me an incident report and marked it as a hit and run.
Your question, ma'am?
I called Northern District twice the following day and spoke to 2 different officers. They would not give me any information on this man. I said, I already have information on him because my insurance company gave it to me. He's been involved with tons of traffic violations. He's had convictions.
Ma'am?
He never goes to court.
I'm sorry, your question for the police commissioner?
I want to know why the police department is protecting him when I'm the victim.
Thank you.
They won't go pick him up. They won't do anything. I have all of his information. Why? Am I not that important? I could have lost my life. Do you know, one second, please.
So I want to check in again, just because, so there are 28 names behind
Okay,
you.
I understand, but I understand. Just one second, please.
Ma'am, I understand the frustration, and I understand.
I don't think you do. You weren't there with me the other day.
I am the parent of a child who was shot.
And I'm a sister.
Not just a few months ago.
I am a sister whose brother almost lost his life when he was shot, and the man went to jail and 9 months later was walking the street.
So I think that the point that I was just attempting to make is that I can absolutely empathize and relate with you, ma'am. I was not trying to make my trauma greater than yours.
That's fine.
And we want to give the police commissioner an opportunity to answer your question so that he can address the questions of others. Police commissioner?
Please.
Yes, you are important. And I have to get the answer to you of why what happened. And certainly, if we give us your information, we can research that and get you the answer of why the protocol was what it was and why the response from the officers that you called was the response you got. We have no way of knowing that tonight, but we commit to finding out and reporting back to you.
You will.
We will report back and get the answer back to you, but make sure you give us your information. Now, when it comes to hit and run and what happened, while I do not want to second guess your decision of what you did there, I do want to admonish you to not do anything that would cause you to put yourself in worse danger than necessary.
Sometimes you just don't think first.
I know.
You know, I took my life in my own hands walking back to his van. He could have been armed and shot me.
We just want you to be safe. We want you to be safe. But please give us your information. We will find out what the response was, why it was what it was, and give you that information.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Schofield.
Yes, first of all, thank you, Shorty, and thank you for allowing me to speak. And I know your list is so long, but this is very personal, and I'm very passionate, and I come from a loving point because my brother was murdered by this district, Northeast District. Tyrone West, one unarmed man. I've been out here protesting week after week, 290 weeks, 2,032 days. And not just for Tyrone West, I protest for all the victims of police brutality and murder. And until the police stop policing themselves, it's going to be a continuance of violence. So my question to you, and I've been dying and waiting for you to come to this district so I can ask you these things. Are you, and I've been listening to you, you seem so compassionate, but I done seen the Doug and Pony show so much. I want those great things that you said to be a part of your actions, but I want to know what's going to be different from you than all the rest of the commissioners that we have seen in the past. And I don't want you to be a puppet like we done seen in the past. I want you to come from a loving heart and hold yourself accountable and hold the folks accountable. We have too many good women that work in the police force, but way too many bad ones that's still working. Ruiz, Chapman, David Lewis, the list goes on. These murderer killers are still free to come kill somebody else unarmed child. And for me to see on the news another person that was shoplifting, gunned down, boom, 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 no tasing, nothing. But for my brother to be tased, pepper spray, kicked, and for the medical examiner's office not to just cover up my brothers, but after my brothers, I'm gonna share their names real quickly. I know I got 2 minutes. But George King, 19, who was tasered to death in Good Sam Hospital, what did the medical examiners come back with? They came back with foolishness and said this man died from natural causes, as if we're stupid. Taiwan boy, 21, executed. They said he died. He was in the same prone position, chokehold. They said he died from excited delirium. Same exact thing they try to say in my brother's case, but we called them out on that. But then they said my brother had an underlying heart condition, foolishness. And my brother was very, and Antoine Black and Anthony Anderson, all the victims. And they keep covering up, but I just want to know what is going to be different from you, and what are you going to do about holding the repeat violent offenders accountable and getting them out of the force today?
Thank you, Tawanda.
Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Happy to give you an opportunity to speak. And I feel your passion, I feel your pain. What's different about me is that, number one, I don't owe anybody any favors.
Amen.
I answer to one person, and that's the mayor. I have to work with a lot of constituents. I have to work with local, state, elected officials. I have to work with federal officials. What's different about me that's different about the other commissioners is I have the whole United States government backing me up. It's called the consent decree. And I have the knowledge of how to fix what you're asking me to fix. And what's different about me is that the other commissioners didn't do it in another city like I did. Now, I'm not saying go back and check, but I'm saying I come from a place where this was done. It was probably worse in New Orleans than you think it was here in Baltimore. And we did it. It was hard, but we did it. So I commit to you that I left all of that to put it all on the line. I'm not going to lose it. I'm going to make sure it gets done the right way. What's different is that I have all of you here backing me up. I have the whole United States government backing me up, and I have the knowledge, skill, and ability to do it, and because I've already done it. And what's different from me is you've never stood before a police commissioner to ask a question ever, but you did tonight. Thank you. Thank you. I'm addressing the lady. Thank you for speaking. Thank you.
And when
I think she's doing a great job.
And when I get
and expressing that you're doing a great job.
And if I get a chance, I would love to sit down with you and meet.
I will absolutely.
And hopefully it's not the Doug and Pony show, because I don't have time for that. I really don't. I really appreciate you.
I travel 12.
I appreciate it, and I want to see what happens. And we want the same respect that when the mayor can walk down Federal Hill, what about down the hill? What about up the hill? All the blood that's laying on the ground matters. Because a human life is a human life. Thank you so much.
No, wait. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. I traveled 1,200 miles to get here. There's no dog and pony show.
Appreciate it.
There's no dog and pony show. It's been done before. It can be done again. I feel your pain. We all feel your pain. But you have to give us a chance.
Oh, I'm willing. I'm definitely willing.
Whether police commissioners or not have talked to you, I'm talking about coming here before I even get confirmed and opening myself up to hear from all of you before I even get the job. I don't know that that has ever been done, since people want to speak out of turn and tell me what I've done or haven't done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tawanda.
So here's what we have. I'm committed to staying, and I have to thank our principal, because I know they gave us an allotted amount of time. Out of respect, we want to do that. I want to meet with the people over here. She's going to call those names who did not get a chance to come to the microphone, because we committed to hearing from you. Here's the overwhelming central theme of issues that we've heard from you tonight here in this district. The strategy for recruiting and retaining officers, certainly that's been a high-level set of comments and questions about that. Changing culture of the department. That's what we're here to do. That's what the consent decree mandates, but that's what we want to do. That's what's necessary, and that's what we need to do. Transparency. It is transparency and accountability. You've heard me talk about it a number of times. Many of you stepped to the microphone and talked about the lack of accountability and transparency. Youth, diversion, and support. Many people talked about what we're doing with the youth, the police department versus nonprofit organizations that can help with youth. Community engagement. Almost everybody that came to the microphone, whether they said it directly or indirectly, talked about community engagement. It's very important to us. It is the only way we are going to build trust with you and show ourselves trustworthy that we can earn it. Repairing the relationship between the residents and police. That's another area of community engagement, and the only way trust is built is through high-level engagement, which we are committed to. Community policing and building up skills of communities. While we're building up skills and training and coaching our department, we need to have programs that teach members of the community how to do the same thing and understand what the entire community policing concept is. It's a collaborative effort of us community policing and the community policing. And reducing violent crime and ensuring residents feel safe and are actually safe in their neighborhoods. That's been a resounding theme every single night, especially here in this district. We are committed to that. We've already worked with our leadership team at every single level to make sure that we are as engaged as we can be, as aggressive but not abusive as we can be, as compassionate and engaging as we can be to deal with violent crime, open-air drug markets, robberies, response times, walking beats, all of that we've talked about and all of that we are working on. So once again, I want to thank you for your comments and for your questions. I'm going to stay here for a little while to take them. I know there's a long list, but at this time, I turn it over to the mayor. Thank you once again for being with us tonight.
Give yourselves a big round of applause. Thank you all for being here this evening. I want to give a shout out to the Office of Neighborhoods for all the work that you did to get everybody here, to Allie Smith and the Office of Engagement for your work for getting everybody here, and give our MC, Shantae Guy, a big round of applause. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you all.